a variety of activities, and a number of support groups to help us grow along the way. Don't forget to visit the information and welcome table in the courtyard today, or pick up one of the connection flyers to find out more. Please don't miss out on the information and announcements in your bulletin, which will make your connection with Founders more meaningful. Check out our website, mccla.org, and find us on Facebook. And join us in making Founders Metropolitan Community Church your one-stop spiritual portal. If this is your first Sunday at Founders, you are our guest, and we would like to extend an especially warm welcome. After today's worship service, please join us for refreshments in the courtyard. Visit the Welcome and Information Center and meet some new friends. We would love to hear your questions, give you a tour of the building, or serve you a cup of coffee. In just a few moments, the ushers will pass out the welcome tablets. We want everyone to sign in today and let us know how we can best serve you. If you are joining us online, we want to hear from you as well. Look for the check-in information on the homepage of our website and let us know that you are joining us. Founders Metropolitan Community Church is a place of diversity and welcome, a place of healing and acceptance, a place of deep spirituality and transformation, a place of joy and love. Welcome to Founders Metropolitan Community Church, Los Angeles.
We gather in this place built by God's steadfast love. Struggles and stragglers, pilgrims almost at the end of the journey. Each of us seeks to follow Jesus, the compassionate one. Builders of bridges in fractured communities, those who stand on either side of walls of fear. The spirit of faithfulness calls us to live as one people, God's people. Let us rise for our opening song. Bring many names, beautiful and good, celebrating parable and story, holiness in glory, living, loving God. Hell and and day, planning all the wonders of creation, strategization, genius at play, hell and Hosanna, strong Mother God, warm Father God, hugging every child, feeling all the strength of human living, caring and forgiving, till we're reconciled. Hail and Hosanna, warm Mother God, old waking God, pray with endless care, calm diffusing evils and disguises, glad of the surprises, wiser than despair. Hail and Hosanna, old waking God, young growing God, here on the moon, saying no to falsehood and unkindness, crying out for justice, giving all you have. Hail and Hosanna, young growing God, great living God, never fully known, joyful darkness far beyond our seeing, closer yet than breathing, everlasting home. Hail and Hosanna, great living God. Please be seated. Welcome to Founders Metropolitan Community Church. It is always a joy to come together as community and come together for worship. Do we have any individuals here today who are first-time visitors, first time being part of this community? Well, I also know that we have several individuals who are returning after a bit of a hiatus or trips to Africa or whatever. And so for those of you who are returning after some time, why don't you raise your hand and the ushers will give you a flower. Welcome, and welcome to everybody who is joining us online from around the world. It is always a joy and a blessing to know that wherever you are, that you can connect to this incredible, hopeful, prophetic congregation and ministry. And so welcome to Founders Metropolitan Community Church from wherever you are in your life journey, or literally wherever you are in the world today. At some point, we encourage you to scroll down on the screen where you're watching this broadcast. You'll find that there's a place where you can give us a little bit of your information if you choose to do so. You can also share with us any ideas that you have or thoughts about how we can make the worship experience online more meaningful for you, as well as if you have any prayers that you would like us to hold in our hearts so that we may support you spiritually wherever you are throughout the week. For everybody who is gathered here together, welcome on this very special service as we commemorate the 15th anniversary of September 11th and the September 11th attacks. We know there are many, many different things that are actually happening in the life and the ministry of this congregation and many others around the community. We will have a special guest speaker. She is with Muslims from for Progressive Values, and unfortunately, because of transportation challenges, she will not be with us at the 9 o'clock. She will definitely be here for the 11 o'clock this morning, and so we ask that you hold her in prayer as she travels here together. And then later on this afternoon, many of us, especially those of us who are wearing our God Thinks You're Fabulous t-shirts, we're going to be joining the Muslims for Progressive Values. We're going to walk with them in celebration and in commemoration from Pershing Park down to City Hall, where there'll be a rally, and there will be a candlelight service, and we'll have more information about that later on in our worship service. I now invite you to rise as you are able to greet those who are near you and to let them know that they are in the right place this morning. Good morning and peace to you. Good morning and peace to you.
Please rise as you are able for the reading of the scripture, or remain standing, arisen. Our reading today is found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, beginning at the first verse. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the dominion of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the dominion of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underneath. Hear what the Spirit says today."
Thanks be to God.
Please be
Amen.
seated.
Words fail to communicate or articulate the sentiments, the feelings, the horrific sense that the world had changed on that day 15 years ago. If you think about it, they were mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, daughters and sons. They were airplane passengers and stockbrokers, restaurant workers and first responders, and in an instant, they were gone. Left behind were little scraps of paper, bits and tokens, a watch here, a message there, just little bits and pieces to remind people of the power of those lives and the hopes and the dreams that were snuffed out in an instant. Today, we encourage you as we sing the next song. It's a song called Here. We encourage you to join in singing, but also, as you feel moved, to come forward and to just place whatever it is that you have with you on this chair. Maybe it's a receipt or a scrap of paper or a flower. We'll encourage you and invite you to come after worship service and collect those belongings. But we want to symbolize just the absolute randomness of the way those lives were just so suddenly lost. Amen. It perhaps goes without saying that oftentimes when we experience these kinds of sudden surprises and great tragedies in our personal lives and even in communities and even as a nation or in the world, oftentimes very quickly, we almost can't help ourselves, but we wonder whether or not we can find God or whether or not God is asleep or quiet or dead or who did what to whom that actually caused these things to actually happen. Too often, the Beatitudes, those words that were read earlier this morning, blessed be those who mourn, those who are poor in spirit. Blessed be. Too often, those words are often used to excuse systems in a world of injustice. The ways that people live in ways that are unloving and unjust, but that's okay, don't worry, it'll be better in heaven. Somehow, those challenges are used to justify the systems of power and privilege, to keep others silenced, to hold us silenced, to say that whatever it is that we have, that's fine and that's okay. And in the midst of all of that, in the dust of all of that, what gets lost is how it is that we are interconnected, how it is that we are in relationship with one another. Not just with the people who we know or the families to which we were born into, but we are connected and interconnected as community. Communities of faith, communities in neighborhoods and cities, but also communities connected with the strangers, certainly connected with those who mourn and those who struggle and those who are challenged by systems of injustice. It is said that on that morning, 15 years ago, most every single person can remember exactly where they were, can play that right back to when you heard the news and all of a sudden the world changed. I know for me, I remember waking up. It was a beautiful Chicago morning in the early beginning of what feels like fall. A chilly morning, but it was a blue sky and it was going to be 70 degrees, just like today is going to be here in Los Angeles. And I remember waking up as the alarm went off. And for me in particular, thinking just what a glorious time it was and what a good day it was going to be. I was working for a company which only a few weeks ago, a predecessor version had sent out termination notices to 100% of the employees as it was liquidated. I had joined the company just 18 months earlier. I was employee number 800, and within a couple of months, they were 1,200. And in 15 months, they were gone, liquidated. And yet, out of that rubble, a few of the board members gathered together enough resources in order to form a smaller company, a more focused company. They brought 250 employees over to form a new organization. I was one of the fortunate ones. We had been through an awful lot that summer, and things were finally getting together. The Boston office and the San Francisco offices had found a location, and the Manhattan office, just that Friday, had signed a lease on the north side of the city. We got up that morning, ready to go in and to begin, because it felt like all things had been made new. By the time I arrived, the first plane had hit the first tower, and then the Pentagon, and then we were just absolutely amazed when the second plane hit the second tower, and all seemed lost and gone in an instant. But amidst all the dust, amidst all the stories of the tragedy and the loss, what was found that day, what was found that morning, what I hope that we can claim and reclaim for ourselves today and as we go forward, was that we are all interconnected. That when a tower falls in New York, it matters even when there were 3,000 strangers who I didn't know. It matters. Every one of those lives matters. The loss of those families, it matters. The loss of the first responders, it matters and matters greatly. In his book, Beyond Tolerance, the then religious correspondent for the New York Times, Gustav Niebuhr, he writes that somehow 9/11 reminded us of what community really is and what it isn't. He watched and he followed and he met with faith leaders and he went to community gatherings that happened in the days and the weeks and the months that followed that horrific event. He watched as people who never would have got together otherwise. People who believed differently and voted differently and looked differently and dressed differently and worshiped even differently got together to talk and to learn, to listen deeply to who they were and what it was that they had in common. What he said was, what he found out was, for some it was just an intellectual exercise, and for them, things didn't seem to permeate or change things, and it really just didn't matter. But for others, somehow they were forced to confront the truth that each one of our communities had until that moment grown complacent, grown comfortable, had become self-absorbed, that somehow what mattered was the community that were within the four walls and nothing much beyond it. That we had become preoccupied with our own challenges and our own petty struggles. What happened that day was that people saw that we were connected, that community mattered and mattered deeply. I believe that that's what Jesus is up to that day. We're told in the verse just before we get to the Beatitudes that he was there in Galilee and that people were hearing the story, and out of hope, they came. We're told that they came and they crossed all of the different boundaries, that they came certainly from Jerusalem and from the Greek cities, that they came from Palestine and even beyond the Jordan. The people who were gathered there, when Jesus actually talked about who was blessed, it wasn't any one ethnicity, it wasn't any one faith, it wasn't any one spirituality, it wasn't any one political party or any one theology. The people who were gathered when Jesus actually looked out at the crowd and felt compassion was a rainbow coalition as beautiful and as diverse as we imagine heaven might be. The people who Jesus were saying were blessed because those who are mourn and grieve and are challenged by the way things are, when we gather together, we can find a deeper strength because of it. When we share and we listen to the hurts, we also can move beyond those hurts and start to find a common hope. When we listen and are upset because the world just isn't working the way that we think it ought to be, that we believe in this call for love and we believe in this call for justice, when we feel oppressed and marginalized, or when we feel compassion for the people we love who are oppressed and marginalized, or more so when we can feel compassion for the strangers who are sharing their stories which are not our experience, but stories for which we can find empathy, we then can find the power to be more together. What Jesus is saying is that people are blessed and the world is blessed because of our challenges, because it is those who feel marginalized and those who feel oppressed, who do not have anything vested in the way things are, who have the power to change the world for good. This is our story. This has been our story since the beginning for nearly 48 years. Isn't that true, Troy? This has been the story of this very congregation, this very community that gave birth to a denomination, gave birth to a movement. That we saw that community was more than what the world said. That we saw that there was a calling for us to be blessed even as we felt oppressed. That we felt called to make the world a better place. More loving and just, not just for those who gathered, but for all those who were being oppressed in the world. And you've changed the world. We are in such a different place than what we were 48 years ago. Praise God. But our work's not over. It's just beginning. That was the beginning of the chapter. If this slogan means anything, if the words we say and the words we preach and the grace that we celebrate at this table every single Sunday means anything, if the stories that we have, the stories of triumphing over tragedy, if those stories mean anything, it's because we have more to do and more to do together. Yes. This shirt certainly has value and worth when we wear it in Pride Parade on Pride Sunday going down West Hollywood. Yes. But I believe that's just the beginning. This afternoon, we walk with Muslims for progressive values so that we will walk with them and that we will stand with them so that we will symbolically say and physically show that when they walk, they don't walk alone. When we stand with them and when we walk with others, we share the fact that we are, in fact, connected, that we are community, that we are blessed in blessing others and using our presence and our privilege and our power in order to change the world, not just for ourselves, but well beyond that. Just yesterday, 2 women were accosted in New York City for wearing a hijab. A woman said some horrible things and then physically assaulted them. Why? Because somehow we've been deluded in this ethos of fear that the only way that we can be united is if we are uniform, that the only way that we can be together is if we somehow scrub out and pretend those differences don't matter. The blessing of this community, the blessing of the rainbow, is that every single one of those stripes matters and matters intensely. That when you look at the prism, there are all the colors and they move from the ultraviolets to the ultra reds, and they move without separation. I believe that what Jesus was up to that morning, informing the first followers there at the beginning of their ministry, I believe that he was telling a story which was bigger than anybody could have ever hoped for or imagined. That indeed, we are blessed when we listen to our stories and we use our presence and we use those struggles so that we change the world and change the world for good. Today I pray that as we walk and as we talk and as we worship and as we pray, that we find the courage to go back to our beginning and back to our roots, to find that fire that inspired us to be a community when people didn't even think that we were people, let alone a people. The story and the history of this congregation is one that has risen and risen and risen again, no matter what it was that the world or anybody else had thrown at us. I believe that if anything, the story of Orlando, which happened this summer, reminded us that we are connected. We are connected powerfully once again to the LGBT community. And this 15th anniversary of 9/11 ought to remind us to go back and to reclaim the power of the fire that inspires us, to be a people who are called out for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is for us to live differently. In the coming weeks, we're going to celebrate community. And we're going to talk about what community looks like and how community works. How it is that community is more than just being gathered together in the same time in the same place. We are community when we start to weave our courageous dreams together so that we become once more a happening in history. Everybody gets in and on it. Everybody belongs. And it happens because we are blessed when we are blessed together. May God bless us on this journey. Amen. Please rise as you're able. For those of you who are joining us online, now would be a wonderful time to gather up the crackers and bread, the juice, the wine, whatever it is that you have available that you would like to use to celebrate communion with us. In a few minutes, we're going to consecrate communion, and by taking a moment to gather those elements now, you'll have them available so that when we bless and consume the elements, we can bless and consume those elements that you have with you, and collectively we can be in community and communion, even across the many miles. For all those who are here, again, we say welcome to worship in this very, very special and this incredible ministry. Later this afternoon, we will be marching with the Muslims for Progressive Values. We've encouraged people from Founders to wear their God Thinks You're Fabulous t-shirt. If you do not have one, but you would like to have one, there are still some that are available. I think that we have 9 medium and 3 large sizes left, so please let us know. We've got them stored in the usher station, so we can get them to you immediately following worship service. The logistics for this afternoon are on the front of your worship bulletin, but just to help you understand that we'll be meeting at Pershing Square between 2 and 2:30. We will be marching between 2:30 and around 3 to City Hall, and then we're going to have a rally at City Hall, and at the end of the rally, we are going to have a candlelight vigil to honor and commemorate the memory of all of those who've been lost, as well as all of those who have faced various forms of religious violence in the world, especially ever since the attacks from 9/11. If you are interested in getting there, the easiest way is actually to take the Red Line, to take public transportation and take it to the Pershing Square stop. And when you get off the Pershing Square stop, the square is just around the corner. If you're not able to make it for the walk, please join us for the rally. It will be on the steps of City Hall beginning a little after 3 o'clock this afternoon. Each week we celebrate people who make ministry happen, and one of the easiest and best ways to celebrate one of the ministries is to have some of those individuals come forward themselves. And so I've invited Martin, if you'd come up. Martin is the head of our food pantry and our food ministry, HopeNet. We receive deliveries on Friday, and then they actually hand out food on Saturday morning. And I've asked him to give you a few words about the importance of that ministry and why it is that he serves, and how you can actually join him in this ministry.
Good morning. I think the food pantry is an excellent source that extends out to the community, trying to help a little bit. We get approximately 100 to 125 people every Saturday, and it's a good turnout we have. We have some very dedicated volunteers that show up every Saturday, and we dispense this food, and it's approximately like from 8:45 to 10:15 that we provide this service. I think that it's something that it's very positive that we can provide this for the service to the community, and try to give back a little bit of the individuals that need it. We also have a delivery service on Fridays that we can definitely use your assistance with occasionally. We have all the food that's delivered on Friday. We have a handful of volunteers that try to take care of that. It usually takes about an hour. So if anybody has any time on Fridays, about 12 o'clock, we'd be glad to have your service. But any questions, anything, please get in touch with me. I'll be glad to help you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes. And Martin, on behalf of the congregation, I thank you for stepping forward to be the new leader of that ministry, and for everybody who volunteers to make that ministry happen, touch 125 lives every single week. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making that ministry possible. Just absolutely amazing. There are lots of things that are happening in the life of the community. I encourage you to take a look at your worship bulletin. I just want to highlight a few very important items. So yesterday we held another one of our listening sessions. This is a time where we're just making space. We know that there have been many, many challenges, especially in the life of this congregation over 2015 and early this year in 2016. And for many people, what I've heard in the 100 conversations that I've had is that people are still looking for a space where collectively we can just sit and listen. People can tell the story as they understand and what's on their heart. And so this is really a time to create a safe space so that people can unburden their heart and really just share. The individuals who've participated in these conversations have all said the same thing. This is amazing. It's more than what I thought it was going to be. I feel much, much better because participating in this conversation that people sat and listened and honored what it is that I had to share. And there needs to be more people around this circle. And so on next Sunday, September 18th, following the 11 o'clock worship service at 12:45, I will again be facilitating a process where we create an open circle so that we can actually sit and share and listen. If you can't come on September 18th, but you still feel like you want to participate, let us know, because we're going to have as many conversations as we need to have, because we need to make sure that people can process whatever it is that they're processing or need to process, so that collectively we can start doing this important work that we are called to do. And so that's my commitment to you, is if you can't make it on the 18th, let me know. If you can make it on the 18th, please come, please be there, 12:45. We'll see how many people we have. We'll either do it up in my office, which can seat comfortably about a dozen people, or we'll do it in the theater or someplace else. But please come. We will start off down in Fellowship Hall following the 11 o'clock worship service next Sunday. Congregational meeting will be October 16th. We are going to have a joint worship service beginning at 10 o'clock, and we are openly and actively recruiting for board members and lay delegates. You will find that the new application was sent out electronically on last Friday's electronic newsletter. You'll also find paper applications on the stand as you exit the sanctuary. If you have any questions, please let us know. We have formed a nominating committee to make individuals available to you who could actually answer your questions. And Tracy, where's Tracy? Tracy is one of the 3 members of that nominating committee. And so if you have any questions, please see me, please see Tracy, please see a current board member. We're trying to be very intentional about trying to find the most strategic, gifted, skilled people to help make sure that we can live into the vision, the prophetic vision and mission of this congregation. So please join us as we prepare for that. I now invite you, one more thing, sorry. We had a really incredible conversation with some folks over at Children's Hospital on Thursday, and we may be on the verge, so please pray. We may be on the verge of getting parking. We don't know yet, so please continue to pray for that. But what I am going to do is do a quick survey. I asked the ushers to count. So if you drove today, so I just want one person from every car. So if you drove today, how many people drove today? How many people actually drove today? So keep your hands up, and the ushers are going to count, and they'll let us know. I'm just doing a quick survey across the three worship services, just so that we have a general understanding of what our current needs are. We good back there? Yep, okay, thank you all, thank you all. Now, with that news, I'm going to ask that you give the way that God has blessed you, and give so that we actually have the resources so that we can do what God needs us to do, to be who God needs to be for our community, city, and world. Thank you.
God of aliens and strangers, make the doors of this church wide open so that all find a welcome, a home, a haven, a heart. Christ of the near and those who are far off, make our hearts wide open enough so that all might find a place in this household of faith. Welcoming Spirit of saints and sinners, open our arms wide enough so that all the guests the neighbor, the child, the widow, the politician, the homeless, the brother, the sister. May we be embraced by your love and your grace. God and community, holy and one, open your arms wide enough to unfold us in your heart as we sing together the prayer that Jesus taught us. Please be seated. Join me in the call to reconciliation. Do we really want God to dwell within us, or are we only willing to rent out space for a brief visit? Our actions, our words, our silence, our fears all show the presence or absence of God in our lives. Let us empty ourselves of all which burdens us and welcome the one who lives with us forever. Please join me in offering up all that we need to release in order to truly welcome into our hearts in a moment of silence. Do you remember when you were a stranger, the outsider, and the alien? Let us remember the times when we were treated as the other. And remember, we are all connected, and that truly no one is the other.
God dwells in you. Lift up your hearts.
Lift them up to God.
Let us give thanks to God.
It is right to give God thanks and praise.
It is right and a good and joyful thing, always and everywhere, to give thanks to you, Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth. For by water and the Holy Spirit, you have made us a new people in Christ. Therefore, we join you with all those throughout the ages, lifting our voices in unending praise of your steadfast love. From your love and in your image you created us, breathing your spirit into the dust of the earth. When we failed to live in love, you loved us anyway, refusing to let us go. In Jesus of Nazareth, you showed us what we might become. In miracle and mystery, Jesus was born as we are born and lived as we might live. In the fullness of his life, Jesus revealed the self-centeredness of our lives, so we sought to silence him, but we could not. The resurrection and ascension revealed the indestructible power of God's inexhaustible love. And on the night before Jesus was to die, he shared a meal with his disciples. He took a loaf, he blessed it, breaking it, gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take, eat. This is my body that I share with you. Remember me wherever you eat, and offer your food and yourselves into the world." After supper, Jesus took the cup. When he had blessed it, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant of forgiveness that I share with you and with all. Remember me whenever you drink and forgive." As we gather around this table, we would come not as strangers, but those who are called into a family of steadfast love and faithfulness. You have poured out your spirit of strength upon the bread which is broken for us, so that we may go to tear down all the walls which divide us from one another, to build bridges of reconciliation with all we have hurt. You pour out the grace of your Spirit unto the cup which is passed to us, so that we may recognize those who are our sisters and brothers, not outsiders who need to fear. So as we feast on this meal of remembrance, we join hands and hearts with those around us, that we may recognize that we are woven together with the sacred threads of steadfast love and faithfulness, so that when we come away from this time that we call life, when we cross to the promised place we call home, we will gather with all of you who have journeyed before and after us, offering enduring witness to your hope, your peace, and your forgiveness, God in community, holy and one. Amen.
Amen. In order to prepare serving this feast, I invite the acolytes, servers, ushers to come forward at this time. We want those of you who are guests today to know that here at Founders MCC, as well as other MCCs around the world, we celebrate an open communion. You do not need to be a member of this church or any other institution. Come as you are, just as you are. We're also open to the different ways that you want to come, with a friend, with a loved one or loved ones, with your baby mama. Come. This table is open, it is served, it is freely given for you. In a few moments, the ushers will guide you to come forward to receive communion, the gifts of God for the people of God. Amen.
These are indeed the gifts of God for the people of God. Let's receive these. May you, the power and presence. that God has given us everything that we need in order to be the one body and to be God's love made real. May you use your gifts and know that even in those challenging times, wherever you are on your life or spiritual journey, even when things don't quite go as we wish they would go, that you are indeed blessed, because none of us are alone or separate or forgotten on this journey. May you go in peace to be love in the world. And as we go and we prepare to march, I was reminded at the rally, our choir is going to be featured singing 3 songs. So please join us in our closing song, Rise as You're Able.
Thank you for joining us today. By participating with us online, you are an extension of this church's membership ministry. Wherever you are in the world, we are so excited to embrace you, to hear from you, and to pray for you. Please connect with us and interact with us by telephone, email, or social media. Be an angel amongst us by supporting this ministry through our donation link. With your help, we expand and reach a greater number of people with God's love through this ministry. We invite you to write to us so we can be in prayer and praise with you. You are a part of Founders Metropolitan Community Church. Email us directly, info@mccla.org. May God bless you.